Back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, yes, so we are getting our conversations here started this morning with our Sergeant Joseph Jordan, who joins us weekly, and we are so happy to be able to have him on every week to discuss, matters of crime and so on within our space. Good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning to you. Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to your viewing and listening audience. Thanks for having me so that we can speak on behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Great. So now I want to get us started with some news of there was a firearm recovered over the weekend. Can you give us some details as to what's going on there?
All right. So before I go into that, let me just deal with the usual updates and I will touch on that. Right. So what we had, so we're going to look at our usual statistic. We're going to compare January 1st to September 9th, and the 2 years in comparison is 2022 versus 2023. So our serious reported crimes in 2022 stood at 513 with a detection rate of 44%, whilst in 2023, our SRCs or serious report crimes stands at 461, which is a reduction and a detection rate of 34%. We have seen an overall decrease in serious report crimes of at least 10%. And we are also seeing where property crimes continue to be a challenge for the division, although there have been some reduction. And when we speak of property crimes, we're talking about persons leaving their brush cutter, people's house being broken into, these sort of things. So it still shows where persons are still living, they are not securing their homes properly. All right, our main crimes, we're talking about house breaking, general larceny, sexual offenses. Those are the crimes that are of a challenge for the division, and we continue to put measures in place. We are still asking persons to be a hard target, commercial as well as residential personnel. Secure your home, secure your businesses, put the necessary means and measures in place so that you do not become a victim of a wannabe bandit or a perpetrator. Because by you putting the necessary measures in place, you are now making it more difficult for persons to infiltrate your property, and you're also giving yourself a greater chance, as in protecting yourself and your property. Right? So let's touch on as it relates to the firearm. So on Saturday evening, on Saturday 16th September, officers of the Joint Intelligence Patrol Unit and the Tobago Divisional Task Force in the Shervan Road District would have recovered a Glock 19 pistol and 5 rounds 9mm ammunition. 2 persons are in custody as relates to that, and we would hear further on that during the week. Last Wednesday as well, there was a report in the Shervan Road District again, where the victim would have heard some loud explosions on his way to home. And as a result of that, he would have called the police. Officers of the Shervan Road Police Station would have investigated, and at a later time, they would have recovered some spent shells in the area. So they are actively pursuing those leads to see what exactly is taking place. So once again, as per usual, we ask the public, if you see something, say something. We also want to encourage persons to communicate with the 800 TIPS 555, the various station, the Shervan Road Station District telephone number at 639-8888, and share all the information to assist the police in bringing these perpetrators to justice, and also in making our community safer.
Now, are all these shooting incidents, are they related? The recovery of the firearm, do you know if there are any connections between them as it relates to gang activity? Like, I know the ACP said last week, we have an increase of gang activity happening in Tobago.
Right, so at this point in time, as the recovery of the firearm and the suspected shooting or gunshots being heard, we cannot put a correlation between those two. However, there will be a correlation between the wrongs being found and the person who would have heard the loud explosions. So there may be a correlation between those two. We are pursuing all the leads and to ensure that we can solve this matter and to find out what was the motive behind that particular incident.
All right, so moving on now to one of the topics that we have for this morning, and that is vigilante justice.
Right.
Because we're seeing a lot of reports right now in Trinidad where people are fighting back against the criminal elements. But you know, there are some, there's not something that the police necessarily supports. Can you clarify?
Right.
Oh,
Right. So,
yes.
so vigilante justice, vigilanteism, street justice, basically identify or is defined as persons or a group of person or group of people rather taking the law into their own hand and serving justice. And when we dissect that statement, it means that you are the judge, you are the jury, and you are the executioner when you operate like that. And that sort of system is not one that should be supported by any society. Yes, we want to fight back at the criminals, we want to fight crime, but it still must be done within the realm of the law. And you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you being the victim now becomes a person that is subject to a criminal investigation. So vigilante justice has its merits, and it allows people to assist the police in bringing persons to the forefront. And what we encourage persons to do is, if somebody commits a crime or is suspected of committing a crime, you detain that person and you call the police. We often know some people might be beaten. Sometimes persons, by the time you get to them, they would have succumbed to injuries, and then the persons who would have committed those acts are now the subject to a criminal investigation. So you don't want to find yourself even sometimes detaining the wrong person. Now our law, within the law, what we call, sometimes we call citizens arrest. The law allows for that. Section 1004 of the Criminal Law Act, that's part of our Constitution, Section 3, 2 and 3 in particular, speaks about civilians, and it basically suggests or explains that any person can arrest with someone under having reasonable cause, that this reasonable suspicion that that person may have committed or is about to commit an arrestable offense. You can arrest. Note the word, you can arrest only.
So in other words, I mean, you can't beat up the person.
No, you should not. You should not. And going a little further, because persons would ask the question, going a little further, if the person is resisting or becoming struggling, yes, you can use as much force as necessary to subdue the person. If it means calling a neighbor, calling for some assistance, the law allows for that under the same Criminal Law Act. So there is legal parameter for which a person can operate within in subduing someone who is reasonably suspected of committing an arrestable offense, or who would have committed one.
If you have a licensed firearm, what does the law allow for you in a situation like that, where you may have a gun in your face, you have a licensed firearm? How are you supposed to retaliate in a situation like
Right.
that? Or
so,
can you?
Yes, certainly. When you apply for a firearm user's license, the reason for having such is to protect your property,
Yes.
your life, and your family. And if someone comes into your home or comes into your space and you are of the opinion that this person wants to harm you or your life is in imminent danger, of course you are allowed to protect yourself by drawing your firearm and discharging if necessary. Now, we have to operate within a reasonable context, and sometimes somebody might be on your property. They may be a very far distance away. They may not have an immediate threat to you, but you are a licensed firearm. The question is, do you shoot that person? Sometimes people say a warning shot, but at the end of the day, a firearm is not something to do with to have warning shot. A firearm purpose is basically to kill. And if you are in possession of one of that and you shoot someone, the likelihood of they dying is very high. So you have to be reasonable in your thoughts, and your action must be of equal force as to the reaction that you are getting.
No, we had an incident about a month ago in Castara where someone got into a little accident at a resident's home, and then the resident, who is a firearm user holder, he fired some shots at the vehicle that was involved in the accident. Can you give us any updates on what
Right.
happened with that, and then relate that back to this whole vigilante justice thing?
All right. So as it relates to that activity, I would not be able to comment on that because it is an active investigation. However, I mean, this information in the public. As it relates to vigilante justice, it is something that it is not encouraged. However, you have a right to protect yourself and your property. And when we speak about vigilante justice or vigilantism, we're speaking about instances where it goes to the extreme. We are speaking about someone being arrested by members of the public and then being beaten, and sometimes being that may allow to the person having serious injuries or even die. That is what we speak about when it comes to vigilante justice. It is serving up everything one time, as compared to the legal system, which allows the police officer to investigate a matter, identify the perpetrator, bring charges against that person, and the court system would decide how the punishment should be meted out to them. In vigilante justice, all of that is done in an instance.
Yes.
Right?
And it often means that sometimes the person is, injured beyond repair, for want of a better
Yeah,
word.
and we, as I said, we are talking about instances of probably murder or even manslaughter.
Yes.
And if you find yourself in those circumstances, rather you now being the victim, you are also now the subject of a criminal investigation. And our actions, and that it also often speaks as to how we react to certain actions. So it must be of an equal force. Yes, you have a right to protect yourself. However, you do not want to find yourself in a situation where you are abusing your powers or your authority.
Exactly. Could you give us an idea of the law itself in regards to, let's say the person came in and you defended yourself, the person ended up dying. How are we to, what does the law say? In terms of explain how the law would treat with a matter like that. When does it become manslaughter? How does it remain, just you defending yourself? How do we differentiate?
All right, so I will use an example. If someone comes into your home to harm you and they are armed with a firearm, and you have a licensed firearm, the person obviously is committing an arrestable offense. They are committing a crime. And you were to defend yourself, protect your family, protect your property by discharging a wrong or two, the person may subsequently die as a result of the gunshot wound. That is you protecting yourself. You are not, yes, inquiries would be conducted to ensure that what you say happened or what the circumstances are, that is what exists. But it doesn't mean that you will be charged for murder or manslaughter, because you are operating within your privacy and you are operating within the law. Hence the reason why you are given you would have had a firearm to protect your life, property, and family. So in those instances, yes, basically some inquiries will be conducted just to ensure that no malicious or unreasonable action took place during that time.
And when does it become manslaughter or a case like that?
In instances where might be of extremities, where let's say, for example, you might be on the streets, you might have a licensed firearm, and let me say somebody gave some old talk, call you a stupid man, something like that, and you decide to take out your firearm and shoot them. Although yes, you might have a licensed firearm, but you shoot that person and that person die or have or suffered serious injury, then you would be subject to an inquiry, because it is not equal force. Somebody making a comment to you, they didn't physically attack you.
Or they're just cussing you out.
Right. Although words are assaults, but it doesn't warrant that you operate in that manner. So it is very, you have to be very mindful as to how you use your weapon or the way you even protect yourself. Yes, we know in particular with criminality within Trinidad and Tobago allows persons, or persons may even think that they have a right to protect themselves. Yes, you do, but you do not want to escalate the situation to the point where it's a wild west style of community that we wanted to live in, and that in itself would bring additional social problems as well as criminal activities or criminal problems within a society.
What about how are we supposed to be protecting our homes? Because I want to touch on that a bit because I mean it is related. When we have increased incidents of home invasions and so on, and robberies that are happening, whether you're home or not, what are some tips that the public
Right.
need to be aware of in terms of protecting their property?
Well, that's right. So it goes back as I would have spoke about earlier in our statistics where we talk about property crimes being a challenge for the division. Now we go back to the basic things. Secure your property or your premises by fencing. You can have dogs as part of your security system. CCTV camera, having proper windows installed, sometimes burglar proof. Use the basic tools that are available to you to protect yourself. It helps in you becoming an easy target. So when we speak about basically target hardening, and this applies to both residential and commercial businesses, in particular with commercial entities, employee armed security. Once again, you can call on the police to assist sometimes if in the movement of money and these things. We would also assist in greater patrols, and as we, for example, during the Christmas times, a lot more people are out. The streets are busier. There are greater flow of cash. Hence the reason they see a greater presence of the police outside. So these measures are preventative. So we try to do preventative measures as much as possible. Our approach must be proactive if we have to fight crime, and that can only be done through a collaboration between our stakeholders and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
And what are some of the things that you notice about those people that are victims of home invasions? What are some of the things that you think that they perhaps did not do so well in terms of protecting their home that people might need to be aware of?
Right. So one of the things that relates to house break-ins, general larceny. I mean, the home invasion, yes, is a term that has been prevalent, but it's basically, I mean, in the sense of like robbery and burglary. Now, what you can simply do is make sure that you have proper lighting, secure windows and secure doors. You need to check your premises from time to time to make sure that, I would simply say, you think as a bandit. If you want to break into somebody else, you would walk around your home, walk around your business place, ensure that there are no areas where someone can easily access your goods and services. So going back to the same instance of CCTV camera, another thing, neighborhood watch groups. Those things comes in very effective. So if you're living within a community, everybody can look out for one another. Yeah. If you see a strange vehicle in the community, you can make a phone call to a neighbor. I've seen a vehicle in front of your home, and you can also call the police indicating that there's a strange vehicle in this village or community driving around. So these are some of the things that can be done in order to protect and to prevent crime, especially property crime, as well as violent crimes.
Is the police also willing to come and actually speak to residents and help them figure out what ways that they can improve their own home securities?
Right, certainly. And with these things are actually being done through our town meetings and community meetings that are held rather in some of our communities across Trinidad and Tobago. And it is in these settings where we speak about what things that you can do within your home, within your village, street lighting. You have a problem, you reach out to TNTech, try to have a better environment. If there are derelict vehicles, we get them removed. If you have abandoned buildings, we get them dealt with. Bush areas that we say, for example, high with large amount of bush and these kind of things, get them cleaned up. So all these things are basically ways of keeping your community safe, because you basically want to have an environment that is clean and free of crime, and you don't want to have a community that is encouraging crime. So the police, yes, we have those town meetings, and even when we do our walkabouts, sometimes you while doing the walkabout, you would observe certain properties. You may indicate that, all right, this person, you realize that they have a broken window or they have a space that somebody can climb through. So we can also identify those things. So it is all about sharing information, communicating, and hence the reason we have patrols. So those are some of the things that police officers would do when you're having patrols, is to identify the shortcomings within an environment.
All right, I want to thank you so much, Sergeant Jordan, for being on with us and for sharing us these
Thank you very
tips.
much.
And our viewers, so we have a lot more coming up for you on the program, so please don't go anywhere.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand